Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. I see we already have some folks in the chat, and so glad for everyone to be here with me today. I'm Jessica, and welcome to my kitchen. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me okay, and if you can hear me okay, let me know where you're watching from in the chat right now, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm here in my kitchen in DC. If you hear a little noise in the background, that's just my oven going. Actually, we can turn that off, but how's our audio doing? Everything sounding clear to everyone? Okay. So today we are going to be making some delicious crispy chickpea and jackfruit tenders. These are my vegan chicken tenders from the Afro-Vegan Society blog. And I am so excited to share this recipe with you. I have all my ingredients spread out here on my table. I'm seeing comments that were coming in loud and clear. Perfect. Thank you so much. So with that said, I want to go over the ingredients and tell you a bit about this recipe. So I wanted to take this recipe and kind of remix it. So we're going to be making a soulful bowl with some delicious sides that I'm going to show you how to make once we plate everything up at the end. All these recipes that I'm going to be featuring today are on the Afro-Vegan Society website. But yes, September is National Chicken Month, and we here at Afro-Vegan Society are closing out National Chicken Month by sharing some of our signature kitchen creations. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share this recipe. It's something that I developed on the website, but I never shared a video for. So the ingredients are pretty simple, and I think you can find a lot of them at your standard grocery stores or at least purchase them online. And give me 1 second, my eye is bothering me just a little bit. Okay, I think we're good to go. So yes, we've got quite a few people tuning in. We've got Rochelle Parker in the building. We have Audrey Timmons, Linda, Patricia Banks, Aletha Russell, Bernadette Session, and Lovita Scott from Upper Marlboro, Maryland. And we've got people tuning in from YouTube and Facebook this evening. So thank you so much for tuning in with me today. So I think the name of the recipe kind of really indicates what's in it, but I just want to go over all the ingredients for you. So to make this recipe, we'll be using 1 15-ounce can of cooked chickpeas. You could also just use 1.5 cups of chickpeas. You want to strain them and rinse them thoroughly. We're also going to be using 1 can of unripe jackfruit. So this is jackfruit in brine. We're going to be using 1/2 cup of walnuts. So these are going to give some richness and add some more flakiness to the texture. We're going to be using chia seeds. Chia seeds are going to be our binder for these tenders. We also have some chickpea flour that we're going to use in the actual tender mix and also in the coating we're going to be making today. We have cornmeal and potato starch. Now, the recipe on the website uses breadcrumbs, but I wanted to switch it up a little bit and try to make a batter that was just a little bit different. So you have options whether you want to use cornstarch or potato starch, or you want to use breadcrumbs. You have both options. And then I think the most important part is the flavors and the seasonings. So to season these crispy chickpea and jackfruit tenders, we're going to be using sesame oil, red chili flakes, garlic powder, onion powder, sea salt, smoked paprika, and then here we have vegan chicken seasoning. So they have like vegan chicken bouillon cubes. They have like vegan chicken bouillon, like seasoning salt kind of. So there is a brand called Jada Brands that you can purchase usually online. But Trader Joe's also has a chickenless seasoning. So this is going to give you some great flavor as well. If you can't find it, you can skip it and just maybe go in with about like 2 teaspoons of soy sauce or tamari just to get some really savory flavor in there. But it's a nice addition if you can find it. And then we have nutritional yeast. So nutritional yeast is something that I'm sure you see in a lot of recipes. If you have dietary restrictions or preferences where you don't use nutritional yeast, once again, you can skip it, but it just adds some more depth and flavor and like kind of brings out more savoriness in this recipe. So it's very, very simple process. Basically, all we're going to be doing is taking most of our ingredients, putting them in this food processor to process everything together. And then we're going to form our tenders with our hands, and then we're just going to coat them in our breading. We have a dry breading and a wet batter we're going to be doing that I'm going to show you, and then you bake them in the oven. So really simple. You can fry these if you prefer to fry, but I like to use less oil whenever possible. So we're going to be baking them in the oven. I actually already have a batch that just finished cooking as I was starting this live, so I'll be able to show you what they look like right away. But the first thing that you want to do to get started with this recipe is preheat your oven to 375 degrees, okay? And then once that's done, we're just going to start adding things to this food processor. So I developed this recipe over a year ago, and since that time, things have shifted a little bit just to make it even simpler. So in the written recipe, if you check the link that I put in the chat, you will see that I blend all of these ingredients together, and then I take the seasonings and mix them in after the fact. But you really don't have to separate those steps. You can totally do this all at once. So we're going to do it all at once right now. So we're going to go in with our can of jackfruit. This jackfruit, once again, is young, unripe jackfruit in brine, and it's been drained and thoroughly rinsed just to get as much of that brine flavor out of the jackfruit as we can. So we're going to add that in. Okay. Next, we're going in with 1.5 cups of cooked chickpeas. Once again, this is the equivalent to one 15-ounce can of chickpeas that have been drained and rinsed. So we're going to add that into our food processor. Next, we're going in with our walnuts. So this is 1/2 cup of walnuts. These are unsalted. You can use salted as well. I just like to use unsalted so I can be in control of the amount of salt I'm adding to my recipe. But if you're not a stickler, that's okay. And if you don't have walnuts, I think that almonds or sunflower seeds would also work really well in this recipe. It just gives a little bit of crunch and extra texture so it's not too mushy. So we're going to add that 1/2 cup of walnuts in. Okay. Next, we're going to go in with our chia seeds. So we have, let's see, what's this? Turn my oven off. So we have chia seeds. This is 1/4 cup of chia seeds. You can use black chia seeds, white chia seeds, tricolor chia seeds, whatever you have. You could probably also use flax seeds, but they have a slightly stronger flavor. The chia seeds I find are a little bit more mellow in flavor, but if you want to swap out your chia seeds for flax seeds, you can. But 1/4 cup going into our food processor. Okay, and then we're going to go in with 2 tablespoons of flour. So this is going to help everything bind together here along with the chia seeds, give it a nice sturdy foundation because this is a really flaky tender. So we have to add things like chia seeds and our flour here to help it bind together when we're molding it into our tenders. I'm using chickpea flour. I'm gluten-free. You can use whatever flour you like, honestly, but chickpea flour is a great option. If you want to use something like oat flour, that will work really well as well. But I'm using 2 tablespoons of chickpea flour here. So add that one in. And then we're going to go in with our seasonings. So I'm going to go in with 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast. Add that into the food processor. We're going to go in with about 4 teaspoons of this vegan chicken seasoning blend here. Like I said, if you don't have this, you could also use like a vegan chicken bouillon cube. You could even just use a vegetable bouillon cube, or you could use something like liquid aminos, coconut aminos, or some soy sauce, just to add some savory flavors to these tenders. Okay. And then after that, we're going to go in with some smoked paprika. We're going to use 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika at this time. We're going to go in with 1 teaspoon of garlic powder. We're going to go in with 1 teaspoon of onion powder. We're going to go in with 1/4 teaspoon of red chili flakes. Add those on in. And 1/2 teaspoon of sesame oil. This is another seasoning or spice that's going to just add some really nice savory, nutty flavors, add some really nice depth of flavor to our vegan chicken tenders here. Okay, so it's just that simple. Now I'm going to clear this off. And then we're simply going to put on our lid. And what we want to do is we don't want to overmix this. We do want to mix it enough so everything binds together, but we don't want to overmix it so that it becomes mushy. So we're just going to start off by pulsing this. So I'm just going to pulse it about 10 times. And then if it needs any more mixing after that, we'll probably just hold the on button for maybe like a count of 10. So let's see what we get after 10 pulses. Okay, so now I'm just going to do a visual check to see what everything's looking like. And I want to give you a look at what the texture is looking like too. So here is what our chickpea and jackfruit tender mixture is looking like so far here. It's pretty well mixed so far, honestly. I do want to mix it just a little bit more, but you do want to keep some of those flakes, you know? So the chickpeas kind of have a flaky texture, but the jackfruit really adds a nice flaky texture to these vegan chicken tenders. And it's going to give you that texture that you're looking for. And they're really, really great for that reason. So the jackfruit is an awesome ingredient, not only for this recipe, but any type of recipe where you want to mimic that flaky texture that you might get from chicken or maybe fish. I've even seen people use jackfruit to make like vegan pork replacement dishes or pork alternative dishes. So it's really versatile. And it looks like, all right, I'm not going to be getting that one. Actually, that's really close. I was only going to pulse it like 1 or 2 more times, so I'm going to roll with it. So I already pre-blended some of this mixture for the batch I made earlier. So I'm just going to take this and add it on into my mixing bowl here. And as you can see, just 1 can of chickpeas and 1 can of jackfruit makes so much of this mixture. You're going to be able to get at least 12 tenders, 12 to 14 tenders, depending on what size you make out of this batch. So it's a great bang for your buck. Compared to eating actual chicken, eating a chickpea and jackfruit tender is so much less expensive, so much more affordable, just as filling and just as flavorful. So just getting this all into the bowl. Yeah, this is well mixed. Okay. I was just going to do 2 more pulses to be safe, but we're looking good. We're looking really good here. So I'm excited to share this recipe with you today, but I'm also excited because members of the Afro-Vegan Society team are going to be sharing their vegan kitchen creations for vegan chicken alternatives this week as well. So tomorrow, Ray is going to be sharing her recipe for vegan rasta pasta with vegan chicken, and it looks so good with a nice creamy sauce and peppers and onions and a delicious vegan chicken alternative. And then on Friday, Jasmine is going to be cooking up a really delicious vegan chicken Caesar salad with a homemade creamy Caesar dressing that is dairy-free and vegan, and it's also some delicious sauteed, I think she's using oyster mushrooms. So that looks really good as well. So we wanted to make sure that we gave you a variety of recipes that you can use lots of ways so that you can feel empowered and confident and inspired to explore chicken alternatives. And if you're already vegan, but maybe you've got some people in your life who haven't given up chicken yet, you can feed them these dishes and it might just convince them that they're ready to let go of chicken as well. So here's my bowl with my processed chickpeas, chia seeds, jackfruit, all those seasonings, and those walnuts. And like I said, this makes a ton. Okay, so I already have 2 patties formed here. This is what we're going for to make our tender shapes. So I'm going to show you just how I did that. It's really simple, really straightforward. So I want these tenders to be medium small, not too big. So I'm using a 1/8 cup measurer here. You could use whatever you like. You could use a 1/4 cup. You could just eyeball it. But I just feel like this gets me going. So I'm not using it to like do an exact measurement. It just helps me to get even portions going. And if you're enjoying this cooking demo so far, please give this video a like and comment and let me know what some of your favorite vegan chicken brands are if you tried any so far. Okay, so now I'm just going to scoop with this 1/4 cup or this 1/8 cup measure. Is equal to 2 tablespoons. And this is so flaky. So the first thing we have to do is really compress. So I'm just using my hand to compress it with my palms. Okay. And so now it's looking more compressed like that. And so what we're going to do is keep flattening it and then using our fingers to squeeze it in to get that longer oblong shape. So I hope you can see what I'm doing here. We're just forming it nicely, and you want to get it nice and compact because you don't want this to fall apart, right? All right. And so just like that, we have a nice tinder formed, okay? So we're just going to continue that process. I'm not going to do this whole bowl, but I am going to do a little bit more here. And we'll just keep forming these up. And we have a comment here. Silverlight says, Silverlight wants to know, can we give a tutorial on our different blenders and food processors? Absolutely. So this food processor is a Cuisinart. And I mean, if you buy it new, maybe on Amazon or something, it's going to maybe run you between $75 and $100. But I was so excited because I found this at the thrift store for $15. So if you have a thrift store near you and you like thrift shopping and you're on a budget, definitely check out the appliance section. I honestly was looking for a food processor for over a year, and I finally found one. I wasn't like looking super hard, but every time I went to a thrift store, I would check it out. And I got this one for $15. It has all the attachments, so it can shred and julienne and all that stuff. $15. I just wash it really, really well with really hot water, soap, baking soda, and some hydrogen peroxide just to kind of like disinfect it. But I love this food processor. I'm so glad I found it. And also, you know, it keeps it out of the landfill. I give it a new home and I use it a lot. So I can definitely go over more of my appliances in the future as well. So as I was chatting, I just formed another tinder here. And I'm just using my fingers to like tighten it in. But here we have another chickpea and jackfruit tinder here. And Audrey wants to know, is there a substitution for the walnuts? Sure. So you have the option to leave out the walnuts altogether if you don't want them, if you have like an allergy or something. But I also think that like slivered almonds or sliced almonds or sunflower seeds would also work well in this recipe. Sunflower seeds would probably be really great. So those are my two suggestions. But like I said, you could just leave them out altogether as well. And so I'm going to continue to form. I'll probably do about 2 more of these. And this is a great recipe to make with your kids or just to make with anybody in the kitchen. And it makes light work of actually forming these. Like the recipe itself is quick because we have the food processor to do all of the blitzing. But, you know, the forming it does take a little bit of time, especially if you don't want them to fall apart. All right. And some of them, you know, I mean, I'm not trying to be too artistic or anything, but I do give them slightly different shapes just so they don't all look exactly the same. Here's another one. I'm going to do one more. Okay. And like I said, I'm just basically using a heaping 1/8 cup to form these. You could use a 1/4 cup as well. I think I'm actually using closer to a 1/4 cup of the mixture. And I see a new question. Anita wants to know, can you use an air fryer? Absolutely, you can use an air fryer. I actually cook mine in an air fryer. So it works well in the oven or in the air fryer, or you could fry it in oil on the stove if that's what you prefer as well. So you do have options for preparation on this. And these also freeze pretty well too. I would suggest cooking them in advance. Like if you want to make a big batch up front, cook them, and then you can take your leftovers and freeze them. They may not freeze as well in this state just because they're a little more fragile. But yeah, you can pre-bake these and freeze them up as well if you're not going to eat them all at once. Okay, so, all right, my hands are a little messy here. Where's my paper towels? Oh, here we got to use one. All right. All right, so clean up as we go. All right, so as you can see, here are 6 tenders. This is what 6 tenders look like, right? And this is what we've got going. So Aisha Russell wants to know, can you find the chickpeas and the jackfruit in low sodium or salt-free? You can definitely find the chickpeas salt-free. I've definitely seen salt-free chickpeas. Jackfruit, let's check this one out and see if there's salt in here. I'm just curious what this brand is. There is salt. This is the Native Forest. So I think usually if it's jackfruit and brine, there's going to be salt in it. I feel like the salt has something to do with like the preservation process with the canning. But I mean, you could venture into using, perhaps you could venture into using like fresh jackfruit. That could be a big undertaking to break a jackfruit down. But also I have seen frozen jackfruit, especially if you go to like Asian or Latino markets. So look for frozen unripe jackfruit in the Asian or Latino markets in the freezer section, and you should be able to find it without salt there. But you also have the option to use something like mushrooms or not cucumbers, or cauliflower instead if you want a salt-free option. So those are different swap outs that you could do instead of the jackfruit. So as you can see, I only did 4 tenders, but I feel like based off the amount of mixture I have left, I'm going to get at least 16 more out of here. So this makes plenty of tenders. It's a great recipe, super economical, super budget friendly, super nutritious, and really flavorful. So move that to the side. Now that we've got our tenders formed, it is time to start working on our dry coating and our wet batter, okay? So these are both pretty simple, honestly. What we're going to do to make our, to make our wet batter, you need, this is 3/4 cup. Let me check the measurements here. 3/4 cup of flour. So I'm using chickpea flour once again. You can use cassava flour, oat flour, whatever flour you like. And this is an option for your flour. So we need this. Then we're basically going to season the wet batter and the dry coating. We're seasoning both because we want flavors at every level. So we have here, let's see, a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt going into our chickpea flour and a 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt going into our cornmeal. Then we're going to use a 1/2 teaspoon in our garlic powder and a 1/2 teaspoon in our onion powder. All right. Once again, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic in our chickpea flour and a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic in our cornmeal. And then we're going to go in with a 1/2 teaspoon of smoked paprika in each of our bowls, right? Now here's where the difference comes in. I have two different whisks here, okay? So for the wet blend, we have 1 cup of water. I'm going to actually go in with about 3/4 cup of this water, okay, and gradually mix this in. So this is what we're going to do with the wet batter. Now the recipe calls for unsweetened plant milk. You could totally use that as well. Either works fine. I just don't have any plant milk in my fridge right now, so I'm using water, and water will work perfectly well for this recipe. Make sure you can see. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm just whisking this up until it's smooth to make this wet batter. All right, and it's looking a little thick right now. We want it to be pretty loose. I probably should have used a bigger bowl, but we're going to make it work. Okay. So just going to gently whisk this until it's all evenly combined. And really the function of this wet batter is to add a little bit more flavor to the tenders, but it's to help the dry bind everything together as well. So it's not super thick. You can see it's pretty loose. I don't know if you can see that. It's not even clinging to the whisk. It's kind of like soupy. That's what we want though, especially when using like a chickpea flour because it tends to thicken up quite a bit. So we have our wet batter nice and mixed up. Chickpea flour, water, all those spices, right? Now for the dry batter, I have here in terms of cornmeal, I think this is a 1/4 cup of cornmeal. Now the recipe calls for 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs. You could definitely go that route. Today I wanted something a little bit thinner, so I'm doing 2 tablespoons of cornstarch or potato starch, just to get it extra crispy. Okay. And so we're just going to whisk this together until it's well combined. And this is what our dry mix is looking like now that it's done. Okay. And now I'm going to take my pan. So this is my pan for my air fryer. And I'm going to grab some parchment paper. Okay. Fold this up so it fits in to my oven here. We're going to just lay this flat. If you're using just a regular rectangular pan, this will go so much easier. Anita wants to know if I can put all the ingredients in the comments. I won't be able to do that right now, but if you scroll all the way up to the top of the comments, the link to the actual recipe on Afro-Vegan Society is there. So you can go scroll up and click it and you'll see all the measurements and all the preparation instructions. And thanks so much for all your questions and for engaging tonight, everyone. It makes it so much more fun when we do these live demos, when you all interact with us and connect with us. So you're answering questions I hadn't even thought of. So I'm having a great time. I'm so glad you're here with me. And now it's time to get into the breading stage. So the first thing we're going to do now that our parchment paper is on our pan is just spray down some cooking oil spray. So these are oven baked, but they are not oil free. This oil is significantly less than you would use if you were going to be frying it, but we're using a generous amount of oil here because we want everything to get nice and golden brown in the oven as it cooks. So that's super important. If you want to make it oil free, you can, but it's going to be a little bit drier. So you just have to kind of gauge what's important to you and how you want the recipe to come out. Okay, so we're just going to start off by taking our tinder. We're going to lightly dip it in the dry coating first, just because this is going to help the wet batter cling to our tinder a little bit better. And be careful during this part for sure. And then we're just going to kind of submerge it in the wet batter. Okay, and now it's nice and coated. We're going to hold it up to let some of that excess wet batter drip off. And then we're going to take it back to the dry and let it get nice and coated again. You don't want it to get super thick. You just want a nice dusting on top of that wet batter. Okay. So now that that's nice and breaded, here's what it's looking like, and we're just going to lay that down on the pan. We're going to do that process again until all of these tenders are nice and coated. So I'm just, taking a little bit of the seasoned cornmeal and cornstarch mixture, making sure it's coated on all sides. Like I said, being very gentle. And we're going to dip it into the wet batter. Let it drip off any excess. And then I'm going to go in again on the other side and get a nice light coating on either side. Okay, love that. So all in all, this is a really simple recipe, right? I hope you're seeing how simple it is to make these up. And like I said, this is a perfect recipe to make with your kids or just with your family or friends. If you have a roommate or something like that, you guys can knock it out together. Process is super simple, but it's fun. And then once you have them, you have them. And you can put these in your freezer, like I said. You can make a big batch for meal prep and use them all kinds of different ways. I'm going to show you how to make a soulful bowl with them, with a couple other sides and some delicious gravy. But you could do things like use them in wraps. You could put them on burger buns and cover it with barbecue sauce and have like a barbecue chicken tender sandwich. Great on top of salads. Super duper versatile and also very kid friendly. So these are perfect for people of all ages to enjoy. All right. There we go. Last two here. So dry, going dry, dusting, wet, dip. Let the dripping, the extra batter drip off. And then dry again. Now I will say in terms of using the cornstarch and cornmeal combo, this is probably only enough of the dry batter for like half a batch. So I would definitely double it. So I used 1/4 cup of cornmeal and 2 tablespoons of potato starch or cornstarch. I would up it to like a half cup of cornmeal and 1/4 cup of cornstarch or cornmeal, just so you have enough dry batter throughout the process because, it's kind of getting absorbed. I have that batter building up on my fingertips a little bit. So this wouldn't be quite enough to get the whole batch of chickpea and jackfruit done, but it works really well. Okay. All right. So just like that, we have our final tender here, nice and coated. I'm just going to get this extra batter off my hands. Okay. It's a little messy, but not too bad. All right, so I'll put both of these aside, right? I'm going to wipe my hands off, and then we can do the last step before this goes into the oven. So if you're just tuning in, since 6:30, we have been making some delicious flaky chickpea and jackfruit tenders, a great vegan chicken alternative. They're flaky, they're flavorful, and they're so simple and affordable to make. So the last step is to take your cooking oil spray again and just do a nice even spray to get each of these tenders coated. That is all we're doing here. The spray bottle I have isn't the greatest. It kind of sprays in like a stream instead of like a spray, but it's all good. But yeah, you just want to get a nice even coating of the oil. So maybe, you know, I might have used about 2 tablespoons of oil to do all this, but like I said, it's much less in comparison to frying it in oil. So it's still a healthier option, much less fatty, but you do want to try to make sure that you don't have any white spots showing on your chickpea and jackfruit tenders, because if it's white going in the oven, it's going to stay pretty white coming out. So this is what it looks like. And at this point, you put it into your 375-degree preheated oven. And I'm going to show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay. And if you're just tuning in, I mentioned this earlier in the demo, but you can make these in the oven or you can also make them in the air fryer. So I'm cooking these up in the air fryer today. But let's see, they've been sitting for a few minutes, so I can actually touch it with my bare hands and show y'all what these tenders are looking like close up. So here we have our baked, crispy chickpea and jackfruit tenders. So I just want to see if I can show you a little bit of like what the texture is like when you open it up. It's sturdy, it's bound together. It's got a great flaky texture. I hope you all can see that. It looks great. And these are great in barbecue sauce, with sweet chili sauce. So delicious. So we have our tenders here, but I want to show you another way that you can enjoy them. And so I have a few other sides because I'm going to show you how to create a soulful bowl. So I have here cheesy mashed potatoes from the Afro-Vegan Society blog. These are delicious, herby, garlicky, so good, creamy. I have some creamy mushroom gravy, also can be found on the Afro-Vegan Society blog. And then, let me grab a spoon. I just have this like saute that I put together. So it was really simple. It was just kale, black-eyed peas, bell pepper, red onion, a couple tomatoes. I seasoned it with some smoked paprika, a little bit of Creole seasoning, and a little bit of tamari sauce just to give it a nice smoky, savory flavor. So always trying to get in those veggies whenever we're having something. So to make the bowl, all I'm going to do is serve up some of this black-eyed pea, collard green, and veggie saute on the side of my mashed potatoes. Okay. And I like to get plenty of veggies in. They're super satiating, super nourishing, lots of delicious fiber, and really hydrating. So we've got, let's give it a taste. Perfect. So we've got our veggies and our mashed potatoes. And then I'm just going to top it off with those delicious chickpea and jackfruit tenders. And then we have our gravy. And I'm just going to spoon this over the top. Okay. And if you can take a look, this is a delicious soulful bowl made with our crispy baked chickpea and jackfruit tenders, with our sauteed black-eyed peas, collard greens, bell pepper, onions, and those delicious seasonings, and then these creamy, cheesy mashed potatoes. So tomorrow, I'm going to send out an email with details for how you can watch Ray's cooking demo, but I'll also include a link to a blog post that has all the recipes for everything that's in this bowl in one spot, so you can recreate this dish if you like. And thanks so much for hanging out with me again. It's always great to be here. This Afro-Vegan Society Kitchen Creation Series is new, where each person brings you in there to their kitchen and shows you a signature dish. And so we plan to do this definitely more in the future. And we're not doing a happy hour this month, but we'll be bringing it back next month for sure. So we can cook together, but we can also show you our signature dishes one-on-one. So thanks so much for everyone who tuned in on this Tuesday night. I'm so happy I got to share this nourishing, delicious, chickenless, plant-based bowl with you. And I hope that you're eating well. And I look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. All right. Bye, everyone.